I'm Cody Delong, and I'm from Jerome, Arizona. In oils, I've been a professional painter for over 20 years. In fact, I've been selling my work in Jerome for 22 years now. I am one of three artists who have done it every single year. John Cogan and Joshua Bean and I we're originals, I guess. Well, I did right out of high school. I was a machinist in the tool and die industry in Michigan. That's where I grew up. And, you probably remember in the mid 80s, we had kind of an automotive recession. And so I got laid off for a summer. And I thought, well, instead of just sitting around, I always wanted to do art. I never knew how to get there, but I knew that I wanted to be an artist. So I took a summer and just taught myself to airbrush. And then I would go to like there was a swap meet, a flea market kind of thing near where I lived, and I just started airbrushing T-shirts off the tailgate of my truck, and then eventually I sort of turned that into a little business, going around doing car shows and state fairs and stuff, airbrushing T-shirts and other things, and then later that progressed into automotive airbrushing, hood murals and custom Harleys and flames and all kinds of graphics. And I moved to Las Vegas and did that for a while. I had an airbrush business there for about 7 years. And then I just kind of got tired of commercial art, always doing someone else's idea, someone else's design, and decided to be a selfish fine artist. And I switched over to oils. And but in order to do that, I needed a little time off. So I bought a little RV and I traveled around the country for 4 years, just me and my dog, and camping out in the woods every day. And I had a little dirt bike, and I would ride up into the woods, and that's kind of how I taught myself to oil paint. So every day was plein air. There was no studio because I was in a little tiny camper, and but it was a really good way to learn, and to switch my brain over from airbrushing to oil painting. And yeah, very fortunate to make my living at it. Well, when you work with airbrush, it's kind of like being a watercolor artist in a way, because you're putting the paint down fairly thin, and it's kind of transparent, and you kind of like a watercolorist. You generally work from light to dark, and so when I switched to oils, I no longer had those particular limitations. I could work thick, I could paint transparent or opaque, I could go dark to light to dark, or work from the middle out. So I had all these new tools to learn, and it took about a year of, reprogramming my brain to do that. But here, 25 years later, I still love it for that reason. It just seems like I have so many tools. I can never learn it all. So every day I'm just like, all right, what's my next experiment? Don't be too hard on yourself. Lots of really good artists come here and fall flat on their face the first couple times they paint here. It's a uniquely challenging subject. You've got all these formations that jut out, and they sort of defy the normal laws of perspective. So it's very difficult to draw it, first of all. It's also, a lot of artists, I think, are too colorful early on. If you really study the canyon, it's really quite gray. Early in the morning and late in the day, you get those bright colors from the light, but the rock itself is often not quite as colorful as you think. So I'd say err on the side of a little gray, and then you could punch the color at the end. Now with experience, I go over the cliff with color sometimes right away on purpose, but I think that's one area where a lot of artists struggle early on, and also just bite off small chunks. Instead of starting out with a vista of the whole canyon, maybe zoom in on a little microcosm, a bush, a rock, a part of a trail or something, and just focus on that first. And just lots of practice and patience. Road trip snack. Apples. Good for brushing your teeth midday. I also do my river trips through the Grand Canyon every year. I take other artists and we do an 8-day rafting trip. We cover 226 river miles from Lee's Ferry all the way down to Diamond Creek. We see all the most dramatic parts of the canyon, and we do little paintings along the way every morning and every evening in camp. And of course, we're taking photos, and so you'll see a lot of river paintings in my backup paintings, even in this show, and also in my studio in Jerome, where I've been selling for 2 decades. I have a lot of Grand Canyon River scenes from those rafting trips, and so check that out at codydelong.com.